You're now listening to All Hog Sports, covering all Arkansas Razorback sports, such as football, basketball, baseball, and much more. Now, here's your host for today's show, Sam Stimpson.
Football season is single digits away. 9 days until the Razorbacks take on Rice. I'll have a preview of that up next week on September 1st on Wednesday, but for right now, we're previewing the defensive line, which is the edge rushers, and then the inside tackles, and then linebackers. Hitting it right off with the edge rushers. A starter for the edge rushers is obviously Eric Gregory. The 6'4", 295 has put on about 10 pounds of weight during the offseason. He weighed 283 last year. He runs about a 4.9 40-yard dash. I say he's a starter because last season he proved that he was starting caliber, and you'll pick up on that same note. 7 out of 9 starts last year, 31 tackles and 2.5 sacks. I could see him playing the end or the inside. Either really works. It just depends on the depth at either position, because defensive line has obviously been a struggle for the Razorbacks for the longest time, really. Chavis never had a good offensive line here, and then last year the team had the SEC's lowest sack number at 14. I think he could potentially be the best edge rusher on this team. It's either him or Trey Williams. Williams, the transfer from Missouri, he came back playing for Barry Odom, so he's kind of familiar with the scheme, even though he's only practiced for a couple weeks. 6'5", 255, good numbers there. He had 8.5 sacks at Mizzou in his, I think, 3 or 4 years there. He's fast and explosive. That's what teammates like Ridgeway and Utsi say about him, that he's able to beat guys off the edge just because of his ability to kind of explode off the snap, and that also has to do with quickness. His approach is almost like juking out your offensive tackle to get him to make a mistake, get pressure on the quarterback, tackle the running back, or even get a sack sometimes. Great size off the edge. I like Williams to be starting this year. Another edge rusher is Dorian Gerald, 6'2", 265. Last season, he appeared in 6 games, but only 1 start. And he's dealt with injuries a lot during his career as a Razorback. He was a top 5 JUCO player when he signed. And then I think he's been here for 2 or 3 years now, and he's just been dealing with a lot of injuries. It's been really unfortunate, but if you look back in 2018, he had 9 tackles at Mississippi State. So we've seen a healthy Dorian Gerald, and he says he's back to being healthy. So really, his impact on this team will be based off of his health and injury status. So right now he's good to go. I could see him being that third edge rusher easily for sometimes, I guess, 5 defensive line sets. I doubt we'll go that way. I think 4 is going to be way more common this year. So 3 solid edge rushers with Williams, Gerald, and then Gregory. Another solid guy is Mateo Soli. He's 6'4", 245, put on 10 pounds of weight last season. He was 235. He started in the LSU game because if you don't remember, the Razorback team, especially the defensive line, was dealing with COVID. Then obviously a lot bigger, added 10 pounds to his frame to be able to play in the league. And then this is my guy on the whole defensive line who's flying under the radar, Zach Williams. Huge weight improvement. He really looks like an SEC player now just by looking at him. He's 6'4", 255. Last season he was 236. 4 starts last season and started week 1 against Georgia. I think he's really flying under the radar here because he was a top defensive line guy last year and obviously made 4 starts, including that one in the opener. I also think he's flying under the radar because if he got 4 starts last year playing at 235 on the defensive line in conference play, which is extremely tough when you have some of the biggest and best offensive linemen in the league, getting 20 more pounds on your frame can be huge just from a point of confidence, rushing, moves. So all that, I think Williams will be much more effective this year and will create a good edge rusher standing. The edge rushers really need to get to the quarterback better. I feel like if that's happening better, then the defensive line is going to be able to do their job to help out the linebackers and secondary. For other edge rushers, you got Eric Thomas Jr., Joshua Stewart, Morgan Hanna, and that's it. Looking at the interior of the defensive line with the tackles. John Ridgway was a huge portal pickup grab from Illinois State. He's 6'6", 320, and is just built like an elite SEC nose tackle. I mean, this guy could have easily been in the league if it wasn't for his spring season. In my opinion, I could have seen him going 6th, 7th round. He's been named to the Senior Bowl preseason watch list, and he's got huge arms, 34 inches in length, and then he's got good hands at 10.25 inches, according to scouting measurements. His length is what really sets him aside from other nose tackles. His size as well, 6'6", 320, fantastic shape. He's going to have a good season, but the only thing I'm kind of concerned with is staying healthy, because he had that 4-game spring session, and he played 4 games with FCS. So as long as that really didn't put too much of a workload on him, I think he should be fine. In 2019, he had a very good season as an elite run protection guy. Passing should go up as well. Plug gaps like Jonathan Marshall did last year. No career sacks, which is interesting. He's not really the type of guy to get pressure. I mean, he's almost very identical to Jay Marsh, and we saw how well Marshall did in Barry Odom's 3-4-man sets up front. And just as a whole thing, I think this team is going to go 4 defensive linemen up front. We can't have the situations last year in terms of pressure. I mean, 14 sacks was a very putrid number to have at the time. Obviously, you have to work with what you've got in terms of roster management. It's not really anyone's fault. There's no one to blame in this situation. It's just these are the guys you got, and you got to work with them. And Odom did a fantastic job, along with Ashley, getting top guys out of the portal like Utsi, Ridgway, and then Trey Williams. Also signed some studs out of high school, such as Cam Ball, and then brought in a JUCO transfer in Jalen Williams. I'll get to those guys later. Last season, alongside Jonathan Marshall, was Isaiah Nichols. He's 6'3", 300, started alongside Marshall in, I think, 6+ games. 24 tackles, 6 solo tackles, and a half tackle for loss, 1 QB hurry. I think he thrived next to Marshall, and Ridgway has that similar skill set. Just getting better pressure, bulking up, and playing better competition is obviously going to help him. In terms of better competition, I mean getting reps against teams like Rice before you play Texas, which obviously has a big skill difference. I see him or Markel Utsi getting this job. Utsi, transfer from Missouri, is 6'4", 290. Very versatile player. I wouldn't be shocked if he's blocking on special teams as well. He's from Mizzou, came back to play with Barry Odom, just like Williams did. Really good competitor per the coaches, and not much intel on him in practice and the way he's been doing, which kind of makes me believe that Nichols will get the job. So my projected start on the defensive line is Eric Gregory, John Ridgway, Isaiah Nichols, and then Trey Williams. I think that's a top 10 SEC defensive line right there for you. Other guys, you got Tareen Carter, 6'3", 305. Before the transfers, he was a projected starter. He's a really good tackler. True freshman Cam Ball, a solid 3-star recruit. Pittman said may see a little bit of playing time this year. They've been really impressed with his athleticism and work ethic. And then Jalen Williams, the JUCO guy I was talking about a while back, he actually was dealing with some back spasms a little bit in the spring, and it's kind of set him back a while. I don't expect to see much this year. Next year, definitely different story. And then the other 2 guys you got there are Marcus Miller and Andy Boykin. Really won't see that much unless we have a ton of injuries. Moving on to the linebacker core, headlined by Grant Morgan, the highest graded returning linebacker in pass coverage in all of college football to his name. He's also a second-team All-American according to the AFCA, which is the Coaches Association, and then Walter Camp. First-team All-AP SEC player, started 9 games last season, just missed the Alabama game due to injury. 111 tackles. That is 10 plus per game. Elite numbers there. 7.5 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, and then you got a pick 6 in the Ole Miss game, just like half the team. Just kidding. He was, I think, one of 2 players to get the pick 6. Might have been 3. Anyway, he's the only linebacker to post 6 games of at least 12 or more tackles in a single game in the entire FBS last season. He was the highest graded linebacker last season in the SEC, period, according to Pro Football Focus, and the highest graded coverage linebacker in the SEC. His coverage numbers are truly elite. 80 plus for a linebacker is really good. And he's 5'11", 235. I'm going to let you know right now, in case you haven't watched him, he doesn't play like he's 5'11". I mean, heart over height is so true here. He doesn't let that number get to him. And he plays like he's like 6'2", 6'3". I mean, just the size he has obviously isn't ideal for a linebacker, but it doesn't matter. Grant Morgan is one of the best in the country, and his size shouldn't be an excuse for that when he's dominating at the level he has and had a senior season last year that he did. I mean, this is a former walk-on. This is really embodies the, spirit of the Burlsworth Award, which he was a finalist last year, didn't get. He'll probably be back on the watch list again this year. Don't think there's anybody else better in college football than Grant Morgan for this award. He's just a leader on the team as well, always working, hard-hitting linebacker. Truly hard to put the words at the elite level that he plays in into this podcast, but just knows that Grant Morgan is that glue guy. Now, last season, Bumper Pool got injured week 2 against Mississippi State with a rib issue, and then dealt with it for the whole season and said he never felt like he was at full strength. However, the good news is during the offseason, he worked with strength coach Jameel Walker, who deserves a ton of credit, by the way, especially when I'm talking about like defensive line and linebackers. He got these guys to top-tier shape to play in the SEC and look like SEC defensive linemen and linebackers, especially for Bumper. Not really the looks, but getting back to full strength. He's a fantastic strength coach. Huge win for Sam Pittman by keeping him in Fayetteville last season when there were some rumors that he was heading out to South Carolina with Justin Stepp, the wide receiver coach. Poole's healthy now. And last season, he posted a lot lower grades in terms of just coverage and, just game grading by PFF. And he struggled at tackling. He still got 101, but his percentage of missed tackles was like 20 plus. And I'm not going to slander him all for this. He's healthy now, so I'm not worried about that. He's 6'2", 228, second team All-SEC last season on the coaches poll. 101 tackles, like I said, 6.5 those for loss and 5 passes broken up. I think Poole's a really solid linebacker. Last year, he fought through a lot of injuries and still played at an effective level as the linebacker 2. I think he's going to have a pretty solid season, bearing any type of injury for the Hogs. Not concerned on him struggling like he did last year, assuming he's healthy, obviously. Coverage grades should be up. Tackling percentages should be up. Expect a rebound in those key statistical categories, and assuming those go up, which they probably should, knowing Poole and just how hard of a worker he was in the offseason to get healthy, Poole will likely be an NFL draft pick. Moving on to the backup linebackers, you have Hayden Henry, 6'2", 225, super senior linebacker. Got some linebacker 1 reps last season when Poole was taking either a break because he was hurt the whole season or he was off a game. 3 starts and then had 25 tackles, 3 of them for a loss, and 1 sack. He was very effective in the Mississippi State game. That is when Bumper Poole got hurt. So if he plays like that, he'll be a solid backup option to Poole, and he's actually getting some linebacker 1 reps this offseason. And based off of that, wouldn't be shocked if he was the number 1 guy for outside linebacker if we went with 3 linebacker sets. And you got Andrew Parker and Deion Edwards behind Grant Morgan. Parker had 12 tackles last season. He was big in special teams. And just a side note, whenever Morgan got hurt against Missouri, both of these guys really didn't look too good. But I expect improvements from both of